My most humble pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Lord. Sai Ram to all. Today I would like to give you a picture of what the old Prasanthi Nilayam and Puttaparthi looked like. I first came to Swami in 1971 when I had just finished my 10th standard exams, and Swami had built the Anandapur College. All that incidents have already been given on my previous videos. In those days, there were no proper roads to Puttaparthi. It was just dusty roads, no tar roads, and there were no trees and plants and greenery like it is now. It was just like a desert area, and this area is known by the name of Rayalaseema, means the land of stones. And years later, Swami had once prophesied that in the times to come, Puttaparthi will become a paradise. There will be a lot of trees and flowering plants and gardens and greenery, and there would also be lots of rains. 50 years down the road, we can now actually see what Swami had prophesied. Puttaparthi is green, there is plenty of water, we do not have the hot, arid summers of long ago. And in those days, there was hardly any transportation coming to Puttaparthi. There was like one or two buses in a day coming from Bangalore, and they came via Penakonda or Dharmavaram. And these buses didn't even come directly to Puttaparthi. They would stop at Bukkapatnam, and many times the devotees have to get down and walk across the Chitravati sands to come to the mandir. The mandir in those days had a very few small settlements, like small rooms. One row was behind the bhajan hall, and one was a little distance away in front of the bhajan hall. And the place in front of the bhajan hall, Swami's mandir, was this sand where the devotees gathered, the women on one side and the men on the other side. It was swept very meticulously in the mornings, and people would line up and sit there. In those days, there were no sevadals, there was no restriction. As the people came, they would come and take their place. And when the darshan was over and they had to go from there, they would just leave a small handkerchief to mark their place. Nobody took anybody's place. Everybody was welcome to sit wherever they were. And the men had the privilege of sitting right from Swami's interview room door all the way in the verandas, while the women were not allowed to sit on the verandas. And in those days, first we had this around 5:30, we had this Suprabhata Darshanam. After Suprabhatam and Nagar Sankirtan, the devotees would come and sit on the sands facing the mandir, and Swami would come out on the first floor balcony. He would just take a few steps from his upstairs room into the veranda, just stand there, and that used to be the Prabhata Darshanam. It used to be so beautiful, like the rising sun in the early morning. Swami would stand there for a few minutes. Everybody would have this first darshan, and Swami would then slowly move back without showing his back. He would move backwards into the room. This was the first darshan of the day. Then, in about half an hour or so, Swami would come downstairs and he would call the first batch of people for interview. In those days, Swami would call the people many times. It is not like now, where it is just one batch in the morning and perhaps another batch in the evening, and even that got reduced in Swami's final days. So most people who came here would get an interview, their problems would be discussed, and Swami would bless them and send them back to their homes. So this was the normal thing there. And in the daytime, during bhajan time, before bhajan, Swami would take so many rounds in the darshan grounds. He would speak to many people, give patamskar. Not a day went by when the people did not get Padamaskar. There are days when we got like 3-4 times Padamaskar because Swami would be moving about in the crowd, and it was so frequent, that Swami would speak or Swami would give Padamaskar, we could give letters. It was very, very free, this access to Swami. Then, in those days when it was festivals, Swami himself gave the prasadam to each and every one of the devotee. He would come near and there would be somebody, the Dwarapalas or the people in the veranda, who would carry the food basket and the prasadam basket, and Swami would toss one prasadam into each and every one. The ladies' side got, and then the gents' side got. This was the usual routine. And during the big festivals like the Dasra and Swami's birthday and all, the Dasra would be a 10-day celebration. Many devotees from all over came, and in those days, since there was not much accommodation, people would just settle down on the sands in front of the mandir. They would bring their stove and some few provisions, and they would sit there after darshan, cook their food, eat there, and also take their nap lying down there. They would even sleep there in the nights under the stars. And for their morning ablutions, they would go down to the Chitravati river, take bath, wash clothes, hang it all up there on the sands. And this was the very simple kind of living in those days. For those people who were used to, taking bath in hot water and all, just outside the mandir, there were a few shanties. It's not rooms, there would be a big vessel of water boiling in front of that. And there would be little cubicles with a piece of cloth hanging, separating the cubicles. So for 25 paise, we would be given one bucket of hot water. So the women's rooms were on one side and the men had their rooms on another hut. So we would pay the money and the hot water would be brought in, and we could take bath in just this one bucket of water. So this is what most of us did who didn't have the time to run down to the Chitravati. We would take a bath and then come and get dressed and be sitting on the mandir ground waiting for Swami. And most women, when we were staying there for a long time, what we would do is we would, in the afternoons, in between the darshan times, the ladies would go to the Chitravati river with all the clothes to be washed, and we would spread it out on the sand after washing them. It would dry in about 10-15 minutes, collect it and bring it back. When we stayed for a longer time, this is what we women used to do. And life was so simple. There was just one small canteen, where even the devotees who came there would do the seva, like rolling the chapatis, cleaning the rice, cutting vegetables. Anybody who had time could go in and offer their services. And, some of the same people would serve food, clean up. And the food in those days used to be served on leaves. There were no plates and all the paraphernalia that you have now. Now the canteen is well established with huge cooking facilities and serving. All that Swami has set it up in the later years. Then in 1971, since the crowds started getting bigger and bigger, Swami decided to build rooms for the devotees who came to stay. And the devotees were made an offer that some of them could buy the rooms as their own permanently. None of the rooms were ownership, it was just donorship. You paid a donation and a room was allotted to you, and that became yours to stay as long as you were alive. And once your time passed, these rooms went back to the Satya Sai Trust. So in 71, Swami started the construction of the East Prasanthi that you see now, the first block of South Prasanthi and the West Prasanthis. So this construction happened like Swami's work. Everything starts and finishes in no time. It is his divine sankalpa, and the rooms were ready in no time. And I don't exactly remember for which festival Swami inaugurated the rooms, But Swami, on a fixed day, to the allottees, he went up to each of the room and inaugurated it. The people had it decorated with green festoons and flowers, and they probably had prasadam and all to offer to Swami. And Swami went one room by one room and inaugurated all the rooms in East Prashanthi and the South Prashanthi block and the first West Prashanthi. And then the work continued because there was space behind the West Prashanthi to do many more, and I think they did about six blocks of West Prashanthis and one more block of South Prashanthi. And also at that time, the roundhouses were built, which were for the foreign devotees. They could also donate and be owners of one of the rooms in the round blocks. So this is how Prasanthi Nilayam got built up in those early days. More to continue in the next video. I hope you enjoyed knowing about the old Puttaparthi. Sai Ram, Swami bless you all.